Boney Jones. Boney Jones. Yeah, it's back. The top 5.
Every time this dude hits the mic, he's about to spit like the best freestyle.
I think he tries to get creepier and creepier with every segment.
He says, yeah.
All right, top 5 of the week. Listen, we talked a lot about the UFC, and so we wanted to throw it out there. Your top 5 UFC fighters. Now, this is not the top 5 best, but it's the top 5 favorite. Okay. And another added wrinkle is this is draft style.
Okay.
So you cannot have the same top 5 list. If that your person gets taken, you got to move on.
All right. So are we doing it? Come on.
Yep. You ready? Ooh. Oh, I had to go
3 in a row. All right, so that was basically for John Jones, right?
It was.
Okay.
Number 1 for me, hands down. If you listen to the full podcast episode and listen to me talk about John Jones, it ain't even close for me. John Jones is not only the GOAT, but he's my favorite by a landslide. He's what got me into the sport. I remember watching like the Thiago Santos, Anthony Smith fights, Gus 2. But the one that like really brought me into UFC, like cemented that I was a UFC fan, not just a casual, but like watch everything, pay attention to everything, study the sport, go back and learn the history of the sport, was John Jones versus Dominic Reyes. His last fight in 2020. Ever since then, I've been like full sold on the UFC. My second favorite sport behind football now. I love it.
Right.
Can't get enough of it thanks to John Jones.
Now, I think when it comes to John Jones, yes, my favorite fighter, but also like the missteps definitely like as a person at times have made me go against him. But I think it almost
now he's on his redemption arc now.
That's what I'm saying. Here's the thing: it's like Tiger Woods-esque to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Now we're not as far along in the career arc as Tiger Woods, but I think if he can stay clean, redemption, I think that could be a hell of a story.
Clean up that legacy a little bit.
And by the way, can we give the Jones family credit? Holy mackerel! Chandler, John, and Arthur. Good Lord.
And have you seen his dad? Like, his dad's not some, giant strapping
Dude,
that...
they're all 6'4", 220
I think Arthur's
plus pounds.
Arthur was like 6'6" or 6'7",
Dude,
I think.
they're ridiculous,
and he was like
man.
solid offensive lineman. But Chandler's a multi-time Pro Bowler.
Right.
One of the best pass rushers of like the 2010s.
Right.
And then you got John.
John's a goat. Mine, I'm going to go with Anderson Silva here.
Yeah.
When we talk about a guy who was just exciting, electrifying, changed the sport for the better with kickboxing and was able to grapple a little bit, he was so fun to watch, man. And the fight that I always remember is roided up Vitor Belfort versus him.
TRT
and him knocking him clean into the next week. Anderson Silva is the classic case of a guy that stuck around too long and sucked at the end.
Yeah.
Because he was too old, didn't have a chin as much, and he sort of played with his food a lot. But 10 title defenses, a champion for a long time. I feel like we almost underplay his career in a lot of ways these days because we're getting farther removed from it.
The steroid stuff has kind of tarnished it a
right,
little bit.
But John Jones had that too. Like, I think we're getting farther removed
I agree.
from it, and we just forget about it. But Anderson Silva, come on, man. He's got his place.
I'm a big fan of face-offs. Like, I really look at face-offs. I love a good face-off.
Yeah.
Top 2 for me is that Vitor Anderson Silva face-off when Anderson comes out there with the mask on.
Yeah.
And Vitor's all happy because it's 2 Brazilians fighting each other, and he's thinking it's going to be all Gucci. And then Anderson comes out, man, and you just look on his face, and oh man.
Yep.
If you haven't seen that face-off was so crazy between those 2 guys.
Yep. Number 2 for me. So I'm just going to preface it with, like I just mentioned, I really fell in love with the UFC like 3 years ago. So the majority of my favorite fighters are going to be more recent. Do I have respect for like the guys of old? Absolutely. But I just didn't watch them as much. So it's hard for me to have that kind of emotional connection with them. So number 2 for me, the last style bender, Israel Adesanya.
Okay.
I love Izzy. He is my second favorite fighter, obviously. But I love his game. I love the kickboxing style. I think he's one of the best strikers in UFC history. The way that he can stand up and kickbox is absurd. I can't wait for the rematch against Alex Pereira. I hope he gets that belt back. But I mean, even in the short time that he's been in the UFC, like he made his UFC debut in 2018. He's fought in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He's fought in 8 title fights so far. So in April, he'll have his 9th title fight in 4 years.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Defended 5 times.
He's got to beat Pereira, though.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got to find a way.
But, I mean, beat Bobby Knuckles twice, beat Paulo Costa, beat Jared Cannonier, Marvin Vettori twice, Yoel Romero, Kelvin Gastelum.
The Paulo Costa fight, that was legendary.
That was baller.
Yeah.
That was absolutely baller on Izzy's part. Only losses in his MMA career are against Jan Blachowicz at 205, which he was
he's just
30 pounds outgained in that fight. And then Alex Pereira in a fight that he won probably every round and then got called at the end. So
I just had the very American. I said Pereira.
Pereira.
Yep. Pereira. My number 2 pick. I'm gonna go small guy.
Okay.
I'm a big fan of light heavyweight and heavyweight, so that's where I usually would go with this. But I got a lot of respect for him, especially since his last fight going up a weight class. Give me Alexander Volkanovski. 5'6". He's a small guy.
Yep.
But what he's done at featherweight, he's literally run through that division. He could run through that thing 3 times over. He's been the most consistent fighter in the UFC over the past 3-4 years. And then he went up against Islam Makhachev and gave him everything he could handle through 5 rounds. And I have a lot of respect. Went up to lightweight and was tiny compared to Islam.
Yeah.
And still stuck through that entire fight. I'd love to see that fight run back again. So I'm going to go Volk right here. And I think he's outside of the octagon, he seems like a good guy.
Good dude.
That's another thing.
Yep.
He's got that cooking show on YouTube.
Yeah, he does.
It's
Awesome.
funny. Yeah,
it's hilarious.
He's hilarious. But he'll go try to unify his title once again against Yair Rodriguez. I mean, what do y'all think? Is he featherweight GOAT? I mean, Max Holloway was considered featherweight GOAT. He's beat him 3 times.
I'd say so.
You think, Kenny?
My favorite fighter ever is Max Holloway.
But
so it's hard for me. I know.
Not once, not twice, but 3 times.
Begrudgingly, I'll say yes, but I'd love Max Holloway.
Yeah, number 3 for me, I'm going to go a guy that I wish had won an undisputed title, but he hasn't. But easily one of the most exciting fighters in the UFC, never has a boring fight. He's a legit good dude, but he has a mean streak in the cage. Dustin Poirier. I love Dustin Poirier. He's a monster. He's won some massive fights. Unfortunately, never won an undisputed title. He has won an interim title. Just couldn't unify it against Khabib, I believe.
It's Khabib.
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously tall task there to try to unify against Khabib. Then he couldn't get past Charles Oliveira in his last attempt to win the belt. But I think he'll probably be back again. I mean, he just wins. I mean, he wins everything but title fights. So, also, like you mentioned with Alex, like he's awesome outside of the octagon. Has his what is it? The Good Fight Foundation.
Good Fight Foundation.
Good Fight Foundation out in Lafayette, Louisiana. So just an awesome dude and a hell of a fighter.
And since we're on the topic of like awesome guy, and I think this pick really, obviously he was great and he's up there close. Obviously he couldn't get over the top in heavyweight, but I'm going to go DC with my 3rd pick.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it has to do with how good he is.
He won the undisputed title at heavyweight. Beat
Yeah,
Stipe.
No, but I'm saying like he's not the GOAT.
Oh, no.
Stipe beat him twice after that. Stipe's the GOAT at the heavyweight ranks, but he's right there. And I think this is partly because I love his commentary. I think he's as good as we've ever seen, the best we've ever seen, and he's a good guy outside of the octagon. I'm gonna go DC here. Although his style was always kind of like goofy and wonky, but he'd get into some damn wars.
I know he lost to John, so there's the GOAT talk is out, but
Twice.
there is a legit conversation that DC should be in the top 3 of all time.
Well, I mean, and here's the thing. He lost to Stipe 2 times in a row, but he beat him the first time. Right? So, like, he's got that.
Is that his only losses, Stipe and John? Twice to Stipe and twice to John?
Stipe and John, yes.
Stipe and John, yeah.
Stipe and John. And, well, the second one was the other one to John was a no contest.
But
he also he beat Derek Lewis pretty handily by submission. Who else is
Beat
on that?
Gus.
Anthony Johnson, when Anthony Johnson was still...
Twice, right?
Yeah,
Anthony
beat
Johnson
Rumpel
was
twice.
almost about to go into his sort of later
Back
years,
end,
the back end of his career, but he beat him while he was still sort of on top of that mountain.
He had a fight against...
He's probably the Strike Force GOAT, right?
Oh, yeah.
Hell yeah. Easily.
He had that fight against Alexander Gustafsson that was just
That was a
crazy, man.
He won by split, didn't he?
Was it split or
yeah,
was
I think
it
it was a really
against who?
close fight. Gustafsson. He won, but it was a very close fight.
Going down the list.
I mean, because you're talking about a guy in Alexander Gustafsson who gave John everything he could ask for.
Yeah.
And, in terms of striking.
Yeah, split decision.
Yeah. It's just, he had no business being that short doing what he was doing. So,
yeah. So shout out.
Okay, number 4 for me. I'm going to go one of the welterweight GOATs, not the welterweight GOAT. I would say GSP pretty much has that locked down, but I'm going to go the new age welterweight GOAT, Kamaru Usman.
Yep. He's on my list.
Trying to get his belt back in less than 2 weeks, a week and a half, whatever amount of days. He'll fight Leon Edwards again, which is the only blemish on his record is that loss and an absolute Hail Mary head kick against Leon Edwards.
Yeah. You've gotten 2 of the guys that would have been on my list. You got Usman and Adesanya. So that's a little unfair.
So same.
I wanted one of the 2, goddamn. Golly.
Very similar to Israel Adesanya, kind of came into the UFC, won the Ultimate Fighter with the Black Zillions, right?
Black Zillions,
yeah. Won,
which is the weirdest Ultimate Fighter ever. The Gems versus the Gems, and I think Usman fought 4 times in that thing, and there were fighters that didn't fight at all. It was weird. It was such a weird season.
So he came into the UFC very quickly, got to a title fight within 2.5 years. Got to a title fight, absolutely dominated Tyron Woodley, made Tyron Woodley look like a child. And then he defended 5 times against Colby Covington, Jorge Masvidal twice, Gilbert Burns, and Colby Covington again. Was absolutely dominant in the majority of those. A lot of people were like, "Oh, he's a boring, decision type fighter." Throughout his career, that was the narrative until that Tyron Woodley fight. Even though he didn't finish it the way that he fought him, and then he just went on racking up performance bonuses. As I mentioned, unfortunately lost via head kick. Hail Mary with a minute left to Leon Edwards.
Run it back, he'll win.
Run it back, I think he wins pretty easily because he had already beaten Leon early in their careers and he dominated that fight. So I think Kamaru,
he dominated that fight.
That's what I'm saying. He dominated that last fight. I mean, it really wasn't close at all. 5 takedowns, outstruck him by nearly 30 strikes. So that should be a fun one next month in London.
So I'm going to go small again and like very, very tiny.
I love this.
I'm going to go really small.
Yeah.
And speaking of sort of the Anderson Silva forgot about in UFC history in a lot of ways.
Oh,
give me Mighty Mouse.
Demetrius Johnson. I like that. I like that.
11 title defenses, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Ray Borg, Joseph Benavidez beat him multiple times. Yeah. He beat Cejudo before Cejudo beat him ultimately. Yeah. But, I mean, this is a guy who was just always at the top of that flyweight division, and he does not get near the respect he should.
Do you remember the Ray Borg fight? When he picked Ray Borg off the ground, threw him in the air,
caught the armbar mid-air,
armbar mid-flight.
Yep. Absolutely, like one of the best finishes of all time.
I'm not a fighter, and I was looking at that. I was like, how do you do that?
Yeah, man? It takes a.
But and that's what we get to in like fighting talks is like he's smaller and like people don't necessarily have as much respect for the smaller weight classes, and he's 5'2", 120 pounds. So he's really small, but he dominated that weight class, and he's the GOAT in that weight class. Not even close.
I love it. I love that pick.
Man, I'm down to a couple here. I think I'm gonna save this.
What number is this?
This is 5.
This is 5.
Okay, so I'm gonna save the last guy because he's newer for honorable mention. I'm gonna go Bobby Knuckles for number 5.
Okay,
I love Robert Whittaker, man.
Me too, man.
So he'll never be considered like the GOAT or of any division or anything like that, but consistent as all hell. tough as nails, a great fighter. He's torn his MCL in 2 separate fights and fought through them and won both of them. He's won a championship. Awesome,
he just got
dude.
into the fights against Izzy and just didn't have as much talent.
Yeah, just
right?
just Izzy
still
was
fought
just
his
too
ass
good.
off.
Yeah, I mean, before the Izzy fight, he had won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He had won 9 in a row, lost to Izzy, won 3 more in a row, and then lost to Izzy again. But, I mean, he's beat some really, really good dudes throughout his career. When you look up and down at Jacare Souza, before Jacare Souza fell to what he is now, Yoel Romero in those 2 amazing fights.
When Yoel was at his
peak
power, man.
And that second fight, I think it was both the Yoel fights that
I don't know how Yoel made
is.
weight, man.
I don't either.
Big swole, dude.
Darren Till, Jared Cannonier, Kelvin Gastelum, Marvin Vittori, Uriah Hall, Brad Tavares. Like, for a long time, he cleaned out and dominated that division until Israel Adesanya came along.
Now, my 5th pick, I'm going to go female here. And there's 2 that I really wanted to put on here. One in particular, though, is going to get the cake. I'm going to leave out, as much as I hate to leave her out. She just lost, Valentina Shevchenko.
Leaving out the bullet.
And I'm going to leave, and I'm going to take Amanda Nunes here. And I think when we talk about Amanda Nunes down the road, we're going to have to show respect in a big way, because she brought an excitement as far as, and she's still in the game, right?
Yeah.
But, like, she brings an excitement to the ring for women's fighting that wasn't there present to her. Like, when we talk about the days of what's her name,
Ronda Rousey,
it's like submissions and that type, breaking girls' arms in the ring. Like,
yeah.
she
knocks
people out.
Yeah.
And like, you don't see that a lot. Like,
No.
when you see female fighters, they usually go the distance. If it's a high level fight, it'll be an undisputed decision, it'll be a split decision, whatever it is. She's the one who just absolutely brought that excitement, brought that knockout power that no one before her had, and I respect that. And also, as of late, like, she lost to Juliana Pena and came back and won, got her belt back. So like, she is on at GOAT status now in the female fighting.
Definitely
game.
female GOAT, and she's one of the few female fighters of all time that can headline a pay-per-view.
Think about this, dude. Like, think about like the names. Think about these names, right? Ronda Rousey beat, Miesha Tate beat, Valentina Shevchenko beat, Chris Cyborg beat, Holly Holm beat, Jermaine Durandamy beat, Juliana Pena beat.
Yeah.
Like, she went through everybody that was anybody in the female division and won.
Valentina was twice.
Yeah, Valentina was twice.
She beat Valentina twice.
Yes.
Amanda Nunes was the person that, you go back and you watch old UFC fights, and it's these like very skilled, unique skill set, like karate versus jiu-jitsu. Specialties. Ronda Rousey was that. She was a specialty person who really couldn't.
And then once somebody got to her and started tossing knuckles, it's like, eh.
And then you see Amanda Nunes was that first lady in the UFC and mixed martial arts that made you go, oh, there's levels.
Yes,
to this.
right.
Like, she can do it all.
Yes.
That fight against Cyborg.
She's so strong, bro.
Dude. That's one of the nastiest knockouts ever.
Cyborg had never been, like, knocked out before that.
Cyborg was a heavy favorite in that fight. That's when Amanda Nunes kind of made the name for herself. She slept Cyborg. Cyborg was running through everybody. What about honorable mentions? You got any?
Honorable mentions, I'm going to go Stipe, Valentina, Kamaru Usman's on your list, and then Conor McGregor. But then there's one that I do like. Every time he fights, I enjoy it. Beneil Dariush is a guy that's fighting now that I always like. I make it an appointment TV when he's on.
Love that
Even
dude.
if he's on a prelim, whatever it may be. But
I like Beneil too.
That dude can toss some
He'll
knuckles.
do your
He's got power.
He'll do your taxes during the day and beat your ass at night.
Dude's got pop though in his hands.
I've got Justin Gaethje, Michael Chandler, Robbie Lawler, Max Holloway, and Sean O'Malley was the guy that I was teetering with between him and Bobby Knuckles on 5.
Oh, you at Sean O'Malley already? You got him up there like that, huh?
He's just so entertaining. I love watching Sean O'Malley. Like, he's one of the funnest fighters to watch, and I think he's really business intelligent. If you see what he's doing with his brand.
He's a little wild, man.
He's a little wild, but and some of the stuff I'm like, whatever. Like, he's in an open marriage, which is strange, but
I think he's finally got my respect though. As
far as after the Petr Yan fight, even if you want to say Petr Yan won that fight, like, O'Malley was.
Go get a decision from Yan, and I'll give you some respect.
Yeah.
Let me tell you this, man.
Although Cheeto just abused him, bro.
Well,
and
no,
I
that
can't.
was the
And I know his
ankle.
leg was messed
Yeah, come
up,
on.
but like, no, Cheeto abused him.
Yeah.
Abused him.
Max Holloway would be one of my top 5, probably top 1, because I'm a big moments guy. Like, I want to see moments. He was involved in one of the craziest, most badass moments I've ever seen in a UFC fight.
One?
Against Calvin Kattar.
Calvin Kattar on ABC.
When
I remember that fight.
Yeah.
But dude,
because Calvin Kattar said, there's junior high boxing and senior boxing.
Dude.
And I'm senior and he's junior.
Oh, no, he was.
And so you hear.
Kattar has no head movement.
You see.
He just takes shots.
In that fight.
He kept him up.
Max Holloway pieced him up.
He's talking to DC.
And then he's talking at Dan Hardy and DC.
Weaving
I'm the greatest
punches.
in the world. Weaving and bobbing. And then bow and crunches.
But know what bothered me about that particular card? It's on ABC on national TV for the first time. And Calvin Kattar's face looked like hamburger meat.
Yeah, it did.
It's like, damn, this is the first one we're going to put on ABC.
Yeah.
And like for the kids to watch, kids are watching Calvin Kattar get beat to a pulp.
That fight was the perfect fight for ABC, though, because you got to see dude with hands. I love Max Holloway. I am on the Blessed Express for the rest of my life.
Right.
I love Max Holloway.
There you go.
All right. Gabe, shut
You
us
wrapping
down.
it up?
Yep.
You sure?
Yep.
You want to do it this week?
No, you got it.
All right, that's been our top 5 for the week.